Say, I think I may go down to this weird new planet that I haven't checked up on since I made it. Wow, this planet looks very fascinating. I wonder what kind of life forms live here. Let's see, I think I see a Pegasus. I wonder if it can talk like some of my other friends. Hello there, noble pony.
What in Luna's name? Well, I haven't seen a space noodle dragon like you since meeting Fluff at the last BronyCon of 2019. Man, it has been many trying since that happened. Come to think of it, how long have I been here?
Well, I'm not sure how long you've been here for, say, but time is weird to begin with.
Well, it's hard telling since I fell in love with this world and the creatures that inhabited it, with a few occasional Skeksis as an exception. Say, didn't I see you occasionally at the Ring of Friendship before I landed here for an extended time?
That's possible. You do look familiar now that I think about it. And what on earth is a Skeksis?
You know what? How about I show you around? Name's KC, by the way.
Casey? Well, nice to meet you. I'm Cosmo.
Likewise. I think you'll enjoy Thra. With the exception of the Skeksis, like I said, it's really a magical and organic place. Now, don't freak out, but the way I'll show you is through the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance series. Normally, there would be a laptop here, but no Netflix. Henceforth, we dream fast.
What is a dream fast?
It's a little trick I learned during my stay away from Equestria and landed here and learned it from the Gelfling. Yeah, I know what you're gonna say. I know I'm a Pegasus, I can't conjure magic, but this is one magic that when given enough Urdru berries, you'll get the flow.
Oh, sounds neat. How do we do this?
Just clear your mind, close your eyes, and touch your paw onto my hoof. Well,
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun, and I love Dee, just a wholesome little flower that needs all the love and cuddles.
I know, right? I think we all would protect the sweet and gentle one.
Those Skeksis have been drinking a ton of the Kool-Aid.
Well, there's a new brand. Copyright!
Don't try it, it makes you a stinky.
Hey, there are a couple of Skeksis that stole my heart, a husbando and an uncle. But we'll get to that later.
So many thoughts and emotions rushing in all at once, like the Skeksis of a good part, like a yin and a yang. The puppetry was on point, and the backgrounds were so breathtaking.
Whoa, easy, Tiger. Seems to me that we definitely should talk about this in a review. After all, it's getting more recognition even when Netflix. Let's just regroup and let's talk about this underrated masterpiece, shall we? Oh, and by the way, Dark Crystal Age of Resistance was a product that was basically made out of nothing. Being a prequel to the 1982 film of the same name, The Dark Crystal.
Wait, this is a prequel?
Yeah. Years prior to the production of the movie, Jim Henson came up with the idea after being caught for a couple days in a snow blizzard and was trapped in a hotel room. He took inspiration for the movie's style from fantasy artist Brian Floyd when Henson saw his work at a Renaissance festival that same year. It took years to try to get it off the ground since at the time, Henson wanted to go beyond the Muppets and Sesame Street as he was well known for. Despite it making it massive film puppetry milestones with new technological effects, making it the most expensive puppeteering film at the time, it bombed to where at first it wasn't liked by both critics nor audience members. In fact, it lost to E.T. Extraterrestrial in terms of puppet popularity. It was said to be the film's reception that shattered Henson's creative motivation. Over the years, though, it grew a cult following for having the uncanny valley of fantasy seen in many dark 80s films. Fast forward to the 2010s, Lisa Henson, one of Jim's daughters, wanted to take the cult favorite passion project of her father's and explored more of the lore of Thra. After test screening with several forms of animation in comparison to CGI, even with the combination of both practical and the CG effects, it was clear that the practical effects of puppets were a must for the series. Adding the director of Hulk and the writers of Teen Titans, and boom!
Dang, he wrote the screenplay in a 48-hour blizzard? That's just, well, awesome! Also, the move to puppets instead of CGI was a very good call.
Well, I certainly hope so. Look at the comparison! Yeah, this was a good call for Lisa Henson to just have the Gelfling as puppets instead of having it as CGI. Whilst the quality and the movements are adaptable for the means and actions required to perform, yet when it came next to the Skeksis puppets, well, let's just say in comparison, it's like having the Mona Lisa in a Picasso exhibit.
Agreed, the CGI was weird looking when compared to the puppet of the Skeksis, looking really uncanny and downright just weird. The move toward puppets was a good call. I know puppets can be a turnoff to some people, especially when associating it with the Jim Henson Company. Yeah, I think it was a smart choice to keep it all practical for all the characters. Together, those two were so different, the uncanny valley gets lost and makes the characters strangely ugly one way or another. Like how the Skeksis look too real, or the Gelfling look like an eyesore.
I suppose in other films like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you can make a CGI character interact well with a live actor. But nobody minded the unnatural look to Gollum because he was built up to look unnatural since the first film. Weta Workshop and other artists associated with Peter Jackson took the time to make an unusual creature be realistic yet unnatural at the same time. Speaking of Weta, I still want that hunter sculpture.
Now, that doesn't mean CGI was used for other creatures nor events that happened, from the moths hatching to Skekmal running through the trees. I honestly thought that was all puppet work at first.
CGI was mainly used as a supplement for 10% of the series, if only to support it. From the tons of the Skeksis and Erva to Brea running up the stairs, it was settled enough to where it looked more organic and alive. And in a world where CGI became heavily dependent to the point where it looked too much like sugar in a low-fat food diet, it was refreshing to witness.
I do wonder, though, why the story was a bit jarring in a few places.
Yeah. Whilst the show was brilliantly written by a team of writers behind Teen Titans and Grey's Anatomy, the series' pace was a bit rocky due to Netflix denying the Henson Company's 13-episode request. So instead, 10 episodes were given in the budget, and a lot of stories and scenes were cut and mashed together in the first 3 episodes, giving it a whiplash explosion.
Why am I not surprised?
I actually discussed the matter of the pace more back in my own channel.
Wait, you're telling me there were supposed to be more episodes?
Yeah, originally there were supposed to be 13 episodes, but apparently Netflix wanted to give 13 to various shows like 13 Reasons Why and Stranger Things. Hence, this forced the writers to face their worst nightmare. So the amount of writing was reduced to cutting out multiple forms of stories that would have helped the pace of the first half of the series.
So the pacing was off, like how some characters would go and do something dangerous, and an episode later they are fine and return home safely. Made me feel like I missed an episode or two.
Well, yes and no. One of the writers, J.M. Miller, happened to write the YA novel series of The Dark Crystal since it was released months before the show's release and hype of it. Maybe it was a combo of drawing the continuity of books or getting the audience to go buy the books so they could learn more. This is the same with the comics and all the lores and various forms of media to weld the story together. This is especially true with the novels since they covered the twins, Gurjin and Naya, along with Kylan on their time while the trio and Hup went to the Circle of the Suns. Not to mention were written before the show's release as the hype train marketing tool for the suspected demographic. Whew! So much potential was lost if Netflix would have just invested more instead of the film must not be named.
Yeah, I get that. The hand they were dealt was pretty bad, but they still pushed forward with what they had. I agreed that 3 more episodes would have been nice. However, if you read the book, you would know what's going on. Needless to say, I never read it, so Casey had to fill in a few gaps for me.
If not for the length, I would. So I say go read the books. They are enjoyable. Man, I sound like Netflix. And by terms, that makes the Skeksis look good. Speaking of which...
Oh yes, the Skeksis did look good, but man, they are terrifying.
These creatures of every 80 kids' mind that was fueled by nightmares were massively upgraded 120% cooler in terms of realism.
I must say that some of the Skeksis have rather gross designs, such as Skek the Collector. She's gross.
Fun fact, she was originally portrayed as a male that would have been more military-esque character in the prequel manga before they changed the gender to fit more of a female characters.
Dang, now that's a cool design. However, they still look like gross birds.
Hey, there are a few that are actually attractive by rights. In the fandom, Skekso the Emperor, Skektek the Scientist, Skek-Un the Gartha Master, Skek-Gra the Heretic, Skeksa the Mariner, and Skek-Mal the Hunter.
Oh boy.
Still consumed by petty squabbles. When will you learn? Only the hunt matters.
This beast owned the screen. When I first saw him, I was pleasantly surprised that this Skeksis showed to be the beast that could be capable of being feral, tough. Celestia preserved me. He traveled miles with 3 arrows sticking out of him and wouldn't rest until the job is done. Even when he recovered, he got back on the goal that he had in mind. Not to mention he had some sense of honor when dealing with the Chamberlain wanting Rian with assurance that once the job is done, it's done.
I will honor your hunt. Take your trophy, and I will take mine. But if you deny me...
Yes! Hunter will never stop until Hunt is finished.
Should we call Dr. Wolf about this? First Phalanx, now Skekball. You have an interesting taste in males. You do make a point with his fortitude and the fact that with all his trophies, he has so much personality. Easily second best Skeksis.
Hey!
Hear me out, Skekra is great in his own way. He may be crazy, but he is so entertaining to watch on screen. Also, the way he interacts with his other half, Ugra.
Yeah. Here we go.
Go.
Say it. Wanderer. Say it. Just say Wanderer. Just get it out there. Your name is Ergo the Wanderer. At last.
Ah, yes, Uncle Crazy Bird and Uncle Smokehorse. Those two were another pleasant surprise, especially in the case of Skekra, where it is possible redemption material for the Skeksis. Oh, so the new viewers think. but you could tell these two voice actors had a blast recording the interactions. And these two are the ones responsible for giving me these berries.
Also, Skektek has an amazing voice actor. You can hear his more famous role in some of his lines, but here's a hint. Yes, that's right. It's the Joker. You thought I was going to say Luke Skywalker? Well, I would have. But Skektek is a villain. Mark Hamill did such an amazing job.
Oh, come on. Everyone now thinks that the Joker is the definitive role that Hamill is casted for. And that's both a blessing and a curse for this character. Mainly because at times you do hear the Joker in there. But over time, even when getting beaten up, you forget that. Except for that laugh.
What a waste! Or perhaps not.
May I remind you, this won an Emmy for, I quote, Outstanding Children's Program.
What about those 4 armed horses? Sloth things.
Ah, yes. The Skeksis do have a yin to a yang counterpart called the Uru, aka the Mystics. They originated from the alien race called the Urskeks. Yes, aliens in a fantasy world.
Say what? Aliens in a fantasy world? Looks like I won't be their first contact.
Well, Stephen King wasn't the only one who crossed over 2 genres. Anyways, let's say that based upon 1,000 years of experiment that resulted to having the separation caused of what happened would take too long for me to explain in layman's terms, other than an experiment that went wrong, then split. Go to Dreamfast with Me's channel to have him explain more.
All life on Thro is peaceful until the Fire Nation, Skex, is attacked. Speaking of fire, was there not a story about a fire?
Oh yeah, this is a fun one. During filming and production, the Skeksis were so realistic that even when in an unforeseen situation, those who are in the position to be frightened if not foretold would think otherwise. The first responding firefighters had to learn that unexpectedly when one of the studios had an electric fire during the shooting of the Battle of Stone in the Wood. Now, the director and crew members managed to save the Gelfling puppets, but the Skeksis and their bodysuit puppeteers were still trapped inside the studio, which was filled with smoke and water from the sprinklers. Unfortunately, the directors and the crew did not inform the firefighters what was inside before they went in there. So you can imagine with all the smoke and sprinklers going on, that when some large creatures emerged through the smoke...
Holy crap, there are aliens in here! Now, just remember, not all us aliens are ugly looking. Bled.
Yeah, need I remind you that these puppets terrified the first responders to the point where they turned and ran back outside? But that's the power of practicality, to be that convincing, terrifying, yet beautiful at the same time. Now, I know with the Gelfling it's hard to contrast, but they take a while to warm up to being close to human as they can. The Gelfling, that is.
Speaking of which, I want Season 2. Somebody please give it a Season 2. I must find out what happens to Sweet Bean that is known as Deet. Seems like the Darkening has gone to Netflix as well.
So does all the fans and the newcomers.
So, in the world of Thra, we have so many amazing characters, and I think we should talk about a few of them. Deet, as I mentioned, is a wholesome character and reminds me of Fluttershy in many ways. She doesn't know anything about the surface world, so her interactions with Hup and the others are just so amazing. So we can't just have a full video about Sweet Deet, so let's talk about some other characters.
Don't worry, I'm making a video essay on that. And how Maul stood out from the other Skeksis and also represented this. You know what? I'm gonna keep it a surprise.
But we can't forget to talk about someone. There is this one awesome old lady, like she reminds me of this friend I know. You may know her. She has feathers, hooves, wears a cross. Does that ring any bells?
Yeah. No need to advertise the matter. Pah! Okay, it's no secret that friends and family would often say that Aughra and I are very similar. And it's a prophecy of what's going to happen when I become an old crone. But this old woman had an interesting arc. While she seemed to be a demigod of the planet, I can really appreciate the fact that she has flaws and made mistakes. She allowed the Skeksis to abuse the power she gave them, then she became determined to make things right. Took a bit of tough love from Erva and the Sanctuary Tree to finally hear and see things, but it's the kind of development that came out so realistic. Prophets don't know everything, and in terms, she is human. She should be in line with Iroh and Obi-Wan Kenobi on the holy trinity of mentors with flaws and good development.
Like the holy trinity of mentors in popular stories, these characters owned up to their faults. Iroh, and his role in the 100-Year War, had a huge life-reflecting moment when his son died. With Obi-Wan, when his master died, he took up the part of big brother to Anakin, where he failed. Anakin needed a father, not a brother. Another reason why Duel of the Fates is so amazing.
And in a world where feminism is highly dominant in society today, both in real life and in show's concept, it's nice to see that while women are very strong in terms of leadership and mentoring, that doesn't mean that they are entirely made of titanium. Mentors get the wisdom they possess today because experience and mistakes are better teachers than any university or scholar.
Strong female characters don't need to be able to kick butt, such as Ridley from Alien, or be overpowering like Toph. Strong female characters need to fail, pick themselves up, move forward, and Aughra does that all. Not to say that Ridley and Toph didn't, but it's more realistic to see the struggles turn to triumph.
Even kindness breaks bones, like a certain green girl we know. I know I'll be in more depth with my video essay on Deet, but I'll let you take the reins on your own waifu since I took up the reins about my husbando.
Where do I start? Well, I do love my emo girls like Raven, or heck, even my strong girls like Toph. However, Deet has the power to support others. Every good team needs a team cheerleader. Deet is so sweet and cute, but she's more than that. She helps out Hup by lifting up his broken spirits after rescuing him. She sees the best in everyone. Deet is the body of the element of kindness. People may look down at her, but her spirit burns with the light of the sun.
3 sons, you mean. Also known as brothers. Anyways, Deet was certainly a breath of fresh air, seeing how her kindness and her enthusiasm is contagious, even if it seemed naive at times. Then again, she goes with the theme of the farm youth stepping out of the comforts of the caves and going into the big world beyond. At times, though, she does allow her gentleness and kindness to get the better of her, for when the Stone in the Wood Gelfling were at the drinking fountain, no intended, were harassing her. But as the episodes went on, she managed to step up to shield her friends when both the hunter is involved, and in the end, she was willing to embrace the power of the darkening in order to save the creatures of the caves and her fellow Gelfling at the Stone in the Wood.
Get away from my
Oh, Luna, she's packing heat!
And to separate herself from Rian, Beth Shipping, and the other so that they wouldn't get hurt based upon the vision she received from the sanctuary tree, would shatter as many hearts as Mufasa's death, Sobel's crying, and a Tom Banter production.
Indeed, all the spine of General Armstrong with the sweetness of Fluttershy all wrapped up in one amazing package. She does seem to go the path of the loner after the fight at Stonewood. However, this was a very brave choice.
How do you mean?
Going from the support role of the group, who seems to be the team mom, to alone to make sure her friends are safe was a brave choice.
I say in terms of archetypes for her, she is that of the immortal, also known as the magical child. Someone who is always thinking for the better, even if it seemed like it was all a fairy story. Unlike her aggressive shadow, the dependent child, who had to rely on various sources of power and an ideal, even to the point where they are blinded by their own dependence. No one is more suitable for this than the Goth Queen herself, Celadon. This character, before John Walker in Falcon and Winter Soldier, was the most hated fictional character that ever graced the screens by fans and newcomers.
More like a goth child than a queen, she turns all upside down when she learns that nothing she ever does will make her mother proud. She drinks from the cup of Kool-Aid and seeks to undo everything. Seeing her mother getting murdered in front of her eyes, she hears about the plan to farm the Gelfling and is also okay with the Skeksis' plan to drain them all.
Is she blind? Suffering some form of brain damage?
Okay, before we create a burning at the stake, can I be the Frog's advocate for a moment? Because I actually emphasize with Celadon.
Well, the floor is all yours.
Celadon may be wrong, but she's also empathetic. We've seen her transition from an older princess under the pressures and expectations of being the future All-Maudra, even to the point where, as Tavra said,
I don't think it's Brea you're angry with.
No, it is.
Pretend all you want, Celadon. But I see you. I see all the responsibilities you take on. The meetings, the ceremonies, the rituals. You work harder than all of us. Even harder than Mother.
Then why doesn't Mother see that?
Mother is toughest on you because you have the hardest path ahead. You'll be All-Maudra one day. Good thing you're also the strongest.
I don't feel strong.
all the meetings, the possible sacrifices of real friendships, all in the name of trying to live up and protect a legacy of the crown she would have to bear. But the real pressures are for when she does wear a crown. All the ambassador connections between the clans and the Skeksis became her cross to bear. And as much as people were happy for the just deserts that she received, we still had our hearts emphasizing and pained for her when she was meeting the Skeksis and when they did a 180 turn on her. Even in the state of denial and finally acceptance, she manages to go beyond her title, and still at this point, depending on the show's canon, she lived up to her mistakes.
Reminds me of another edgelord who became Fire Lord.
So, let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room. The fact nobody was told this would only be a mini-series. The day after the show won an Emmy for Outstanding Children's Program,
A family picture.
Netflix, with the confirmation of Lisa Hansen, announced the show wouldn't get a second season. Whilst the COVID-19 pandemic was primarily to blame for the cancellation and giving it the developmental hell it didn't deserve, the main reason for the pulling of the plug was the following. 1. The viewings were not enough by the demographic they aimed for, mainly because the original dates were pushed back in favor of the demographic to watch the third season of 13 Reasons Why. Number 2. Funds were too high for it to receive very few views. or so they claimed. And number 3, it was also rumored that this was due to the response of the hashtag cancel Netflix campaign as a response to the public's reactions towards the movie Cuties. Now, the lack of advertisement on Netflix's part played a diminishing role in it, but let's just say the public's outcry of the cancellation became legendary. Fans, newcomers, and even critics were furious at the decision. By canceling the show, actually opened new revelations and doors for streaming services like Disney Plus, Hulu, and HBO Max to release their shows in release order like the days of old television.
I know I would be happy to see it on Hulu or HBO Max. Netflix has a lot of good shows like Castlevania, Dragon Prince, Kipo, Hilda, and lots more. However, cult followings tend to rise in power, and that show gets more popular when canceled. So join our cult. No, not a cult. You know what I mean. Blah.
No, not Disney nor Hulu. We know what they did to the Muppets. I can see HBO Max as a means of redemption for themselves for making up for the crummy final season of Game of Thrones. Not to mention they already own the rights to Sesame Street anyway, so they already established good credibility. In fact, it's no secret that the streaming service could buy the rights and conclude what the Henson Company started, with the puppets, props, and stuff already made, with the exception of a few of the Gartham and a Derpy Bird given a remake, and maybe the Mariner fan service. As for the popularity rising, you're right about that. In fact, it continued to receive countless nominations after the cancellations and countless merchandises, comics, and even inspirations of fanfics to conclude or even interpret and give alternative universes that could paint the world of Thra in a different matter. I am the Dark Horse of KC. Have a good, creative, and blessed day.
And I'm Cosmo. Please go check out Casey's channel for amazing content. Thanks for watching.